this guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Oral questions, questions orales. L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
Auditor General said after she exposed the Arrive scam with this $60 million in spending she's been able to find, she says the RCMP, whom she just met about the scandal, will now have to go to court to get a production order to get all of the documents that the Prime Minister is covering up. If the Prime Minister really has nothing to hide in his Arrive scam affair, then why won't he release the documents to both the police and the parliamentary committees investigating so we can get to the bottom of this scandal?
The Honourable Minister for Public Works and...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After having thanked and lauded the work of the Auditor General, our colleague wouldn't certainly want to pretend that she is not able to do her job. Her integrity and her independence are essential to the work of the government. We are grateful for what she does, and we're grateful for what she will be able to continue doing.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, actually, she pointed out that she can't even total up the full cost of the Arrive scam app because many of the documents were still hidden from her, either because they've been destroyed by corrupt Liberal government officials or because the Prime Minister is having them hidden. And now the RCMP will have to get a production order to get all the documents that are being deprived of the parliamentary committees investigating. So once again, a simple yes or no question. Will the Prime Minister hand over every single document that refers to the Arrive scam or GC strategies, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition knows very well that our government is collaborating with parliamentary committees. The Office of the Auditor General, the Border Services Agency is doing an internal review and investigation with respect to many of these matters, and officials have from the very beginning referred to the RCMP any and all information where they think it might be appropriate for the RCMP to investigate. The government will always cooperate with these lawful authorities to ensure that they can do the work that Canadians properly expect them to do.
Always will.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Arrive scam scandal is so bad that even former NDP leader Tom Mulcair has taken note. He said, but with the revelations of the past few days, I have to face the facts. This is the first major Canadian political scandal since the sponsorship scandal, and it's likely to be even bigger. Given that the NDP's own former leader is saying this Prime Minister is not worth the cost or corruption, why are they keeping him in power?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we thought that that level of exaggeration would be exclusive to the Leader of the Opposition. I can't speak for Mr. Mulcair. What I can tell Canadians, Mr. Speaker, is that the government takes these circumstances extraordinarily seriously. We accept the recommendations of the Auditor General. We have at all times worked with parliamentary committees and senior officials to ensure they have the tools necessary to investigate these matters and, of course, to hold to account those that may have done something inappropriate.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaking of partisanship, Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Minister of Housing unleashed a vicious attack on himself. He said the Liberal government is presiding over what he called a generational moral failure because so many people cannot find a place to live. A record number of 30 different homeless encampments in Halifax alone, his home province, after his Prime Minister doubled housing costs. Given that they admit they've caused this moral failure, will they reverse the policies that caused it and start building homes instead of bureaucracy?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind my colleague that on this side of the House, we support and work with the mayors in Quebec and the municipalities on this side of the House. Unlike when he was minister of housing. We're building actual housing units, and we're working with Canadians to put roofs over their heads. The Leader of the Opposition.
Together with municipal politicians to block housing. Right. In fact, this housing minister, who when he was immigration minister was warned his policies would lead to a massive shortage, and yet it went ahead with them anyway, made some incredible admissions yesterday at Finance Committee. He said, one, that his $4 billion accelerator fund has not completed any homes, and two, quote, it doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes. Why doesn't he instead follow my common sense plan to link municipal funding to housing construction so we can build homes and not bureaucracy?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
It's a shame, Mr. Speaker. He should follow the proceedings of the Finance Committee more closely, because just a few months ago, officials there testified that his private member's bill, so-called, meant to build more housing, does exactly the opposite. He wants to tax home builders, Mr. Speaker. He wants to cut infrastructure that communities would require for housing purposes. His best idea, it would seem, to build more homes is to create some sort of 1-800 number where neighbors can rat on each other if they have concerns around NIMBY. It's not a serious approach, Mr. Speaker. He's never been serious about housing. He's playing games.
The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
Look at the facts. Two buddies, a basement office, an IT company that does no IT work yet got a $20 million contract for IT, and now the Auditor General tells us that she can't track all the costs. Quote, we didn't find records to accurately show how much was spent on what, who did the work, or how and why decisions were made. Will the Prime Minister order his officials to turn over all the documents, stop blocking this investigation, and call for a full RCMP investigation?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, it may surprise my honourable friend, but the government doesn't actually direct the National Police
doesn't know that.
In terms of investigations. We have confidence, Mr. Speaker, that the RCMP will take the important responsibility they have seriously and do all the work that is required. We have complete faith in the RCMP's independence and in their ability to look into all these matters. And more importantly, Mr. Speaker, our government is also always available to work with parliamentary committees, the Auditor General's office, to ensure that every document is available so that this important matter can be resolved.
No other government.
The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
They voted against calling in the Auditor General in the first place and blocked multiple attempts at committees to get to the truth. And while the rest of the country viewed the pandemic as a difficult time full of hardship, the Liberal government saw it as an opportunity to enrich their friends. They got caught funneling $1 billion to the We organization. A former Liberal MP got a sole source contract worth millions for the pandemic, and now we find out that their app cost 750 times what it should have, didn't work, and wasn't needed. The Auditor General says the RCMP is going to have to get a court order to get the documents. Why should it take a warrant for Canadians to find out what they did with their money?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, it doesn't take a warrant for Canadians to see that our government has been transparent both with the Auditor General and our government has been transparent, Mr. Speaker, with parliamentary committees.
Fleeced taxpayers want an honest answer. Will the Prime Minister finally call on the RCMP to expand the investigation? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister for Public Works and Procurement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member pointed out again correctly to the importance of investigations. The good news is that there was an investigation by the Auditor General just a few weeks and months ago, and there was an important report tabled on Monday with findings that are totally unacceptable, even in the context of the worst pandemic that we have seen in over a century, the worst economic crisis that we've seen since the 1930s. The findings are unacceptable, and that's why we're going to keep implementing all the recommendations of the Auditor General's report.